Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine, and I'm from SEB Housing. This is just one second here. This is the information session for the 5 affordable rental housing units that are going to be offered at the Reeds in Worcester. And the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the available units, but also to cover the eligibility and lottery process and what to expect after the lottery is run. So if you have any questions during this session, for anyone who's watching this after the fact, as you can see, this is going to be posted to our YouTube channel. If you have questions after the fact, you can please reach out to us at info@sebhousing.com. That's the quickest way to get in touch with us, and we will be able to answer any questions you have on the lottery process. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing, we are an offsite affordable housing consulting group. So we've been hired by the management team or the developer over at the Reeds to conduct this information session, collect and review lottery applications to determine applicants' eligibility for the affordable housing program. And we will be the ones eventually running the lottery. So in the initial phases, SEB Housing, we are your main point of contact rather than the leasing office over at the Reeds. But then further along in the process, after the lottery, the leasing office at the Reeds would be your main point of contact. So there's a few steps in the process, the first being to apply for the lottery. So you would submit your lottery application either by filling it out online, by going to this link here. So the jot form link that I'm pointing to that's also on line that you will see and is listed on the first page of the paper application. So you can apply online or you can submit a paper application to us or email it to us. And that's the first step in the process. The second step in the process is if after the lottery your position on the waiting list is high enough, the leasing office will be contacting you to do a lease screening, which might include a credit check, rental history check, reference check, background check, that sort of thing. And if you're found to be eligible to lease at the property, you would then be referred back to SEB Housing so we can complete your program certification to confirm that you're eligible for the affordable housing program. And that's the point in the process where you would submit your income, asset, and tax documentation. Because to apply for this lottery, you only need to fill out the application. You don't need, and you're just self-reporting your income on the application. You don't need to submit pay stubs or anything like that to us to apply. So if you haven't already, I do suggest that you go to our website at sebhousing.com. If you go to the housing opportunities page and select I want to rent, you're going to see that there's a page specific to the Reeds. So if you click on that, there's a downloadable version of the application. It's a PDF. There's also a PDF of the information packet, as well as a link to the jot form application. So this online application that I mentioned. And again, we encourage you to complete it online. If you can't, for any reason, complete that PDF and send it over to us. You could email it, you could fax it, you could send it by regular mail, or if you're in the Needham area, we have a physical office there that has a 24-hour secure drop box. So whichever way is easiest for you, we just encourage that online application. We encourage you to get your application in early. It's pretty brief, and applications are due by January 9th. So a little under a month left to get your application in to be a part of this lottery. You don't need to be a resident of Worcester or live in that area now to be eligible for this lottery. So just want to mention that. Sometimes that question comes up. The Reeds does have a website, so they have their own property website. It's thereedsworcester.com, and that has a little bit more information on images there for you and renderings of the property, and then just additional information about the location and all of that if you want to take a look. It is expected that these units are going to be available soon after the lottery and all of your required screening. So there's not going to be a delay after the lottery. They're going to move forward in the process to get these units filled and leased. So just a quick overview, it's a 36-unit property that is a renovation of a historical building. So there's, exposed beams and brick walls and things that they have preserved. So it's really great looking from the pictures that we've seen with some charm. And each unit features modern finishes with, appliances and all of that, but also in-unit laundry. So there's washer dryer in each unit, there's central AC, hardwood floors, and tenants will be responsible for paying their own utilities. So that includes paying for electric heat, cooking, hot water, electricity, water and sewer that is sub-metered. And there is a free parking space included for each unit. And the property features a fitness room or a fitness center and outdoor patio, game room, and a lounge. So on your screen right now, you're seeing the breakdown of the affordable unit. There's 2 studios. There is one bedroom and there's two one bedrooms and 2 studios. There's 2 income tiers for this property. So there is a studio that's at 60% of AMI, which means households who are applying need to have a total household income at or below 60% of the Worcester area median income. And that is lower than the standard lotteries, which are 80% of area median income. There's also 80% units at this property. So there are 2 60% units, 1 studio, 1 bedroom, and there's 3 80% AMI units where your income could be a little bit higher and still qualify. We'll talk about those incomes in just a second. So the breakdown is here for you. The rents are a little strange for this property. You'll notice that the 1 bedrooms are both $1,214, both the 60% AMI unit and the 80% AMI unit. That's because of a stipulation that the city of Worcester has for how their affordable rents need to be calculated. The fair market rent for the area is taken into account in this calculation, and it ends up meaning that the affordable prices for both the 60 and the 80% are lower. And you'll also notice that the studio 80% unit is a little bit higher in terms of the rent than the 60% unit. So just keep that in mind. They're relatively low when compared to other lotteries that we do in the Boston area. And these amounts are lower than the market rate units. So studios at for market rate are going to be renting for around $2,000, and 1 bedroom's market rate at this property will be renting for about $2,300. So to give you some background information on the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program. These are all listed in the information packet, but just to give you a sense here, so the maximum income limits for the 60% AMI units and the 80% AMI units are on your screen here. So if you're a 1-person household and you're looking to rent at this property, to be eligible for the lottery, you would need to have a total household income at or below $52,380. If your income is between $52,380 and $69,850, you would be eligible for this 80% unit. If you're, as a 1-person household, if your total household income is above $69,850, you will be considered over income and not eligible for either of the income tiers. So you would want to take a look at this. These amounts are all listed in our information packet and on the application as well. That's the first eligibility criteria for this program. You need to have income amounts that qualify based off of these maximum income limits. And I'll talk about these minimum incomes in just a minute. You can't own a home. That's another eligibility criteria. You can't own a home when you're applying for these. So if you own a home now, you would need to have sold the home and be off the deed to be able to apply. And then it doesn't come up very often, but if you have financial interest in the development or are considered a related party, and what that means is a related party is defined by the program as someone who, works for the leasing office or works for the development team, then you wouldn't be eligible for this opportunity. But just to circle back more on the income criteria here. So the maximum income limits are set in stone. Those are program requirements. They're listed here for you. These minimum incomes are set by the leasing office, and they want to make sure that everyone who's renting a apartment at the property, whether or not it's a affordable unit or a market unit, they want to make sure that everyone can afford to pay the rent. So these approximate minimum income limits are 3 times what the rent is, and that is the threshold that is listed here and that has been decided upon by the leasing office. So in order to rent a studio, in order for a one-person household to enter to rent a 60% AMI studio at the Reeds, your income would need to be between $41,290 and $52,380. That's your total annual household income. And then you can see the parameters here for the other ones. Now, it says approximate minimum income because these amounts aren't program requirements. They're the leasing office. So if the leasing office might make an exception for you, if you have, a lot of assets that are, you have a lot of money in the bank that is able to be accessed to pay the rent, they may, you may qualify if you make $40,000 a year. So just keep that in mind. That's why it says they're approximate amount. And if you have a Section 8 voucher or an MRVP voucher, if you're planning to use that subsidy at the Reeds, you don't have to worry about the minimum income amounts because they don't apply to your household, since the administering agency for your voucher is going to be paying a portion of your rent. So you can disregard the minimum incomes if you have a mobile housing subsidy that you'll be using. In terms of how we count income, so like I said, when you submit your lottery application, you don't need to submit your bank statements, pay stubs, or any of that yet, but I still want to give you an overview of how your income will eventually be counted and what we consider to be part of your total household income. So we're required to, the program requires us to count gross income. So not the amount you make after taxes, but the amount you make before taxes, even though most of us are not taking home the full amount that's listed on our pay stub. So the income is also a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes things like bonuses, overtime. Really the only exceptions are if there are minors in your household, so maybe you have a 16-year-old who's earning a wage, we're not going to count that wage of the minor towards your total household income. And then kind of along those same lines, if you have a dependent full-time student in the household, so maybe you have a college student who's 20, and they're working, if they're earning a wage, we're only going to count the first $480 towards your total household income when we're determining your eligibility. And how we calculate income isn't one size fits all. Some, households have unique circumstances. They might be working seasonally or per diem, or be self-employed. If that's the case, we may need to look further into the past to be able to project what your future income will be. But then there's some people who are going to have consistent pay stubs that are, they're making the same each year and it's consistent throughout the year. So if you're determined to be eligible for this lottery after you submit your application, you will be sent a link to a documentation requirements guide, which is basically letting you know what you will need to submit to us after the lottery to confirm your eligibilities or to confirm your income. So how many pay stubs, how many bank statements, that sort of thing. So when you're filling out your lottery application, whether it's online or it's the paper application, just make sure that you're listing all income sources coming into the household, so not just your wages, but if anyone in the household is receiving a pension or unemployment benefits, child support, anything like that, you want to make sure it's listed so we have record of your full financial picture there. So I mentioned the minimum income a little bit. So in terms of assets, so there is no asset limit for this rental opportunity. So you could have a significant amount of assets, and maybe you're retired, and that is fine. It's not going to disqualify you from this lottery. When you're listing out your assets on the application, you want to just make sure that you're filling that out completely as well. So it's not just going to be checking and savings accounts, but if you have a 401k or if you have a Venmo account or anything like that, we will need to verify that, because any assets that are accruing income, that income will need to be counted towards your income limit. So in terms of lottery eligibility, so the lottery itself is going to take place on January 26th, so a little over a month from now. It'll be the same format as this in terms of it being a Zoom meeting, which will have a screen share. You'll be able to see the lottery drawing taking place. I want to mention that if you're interested in this lottery, you can apply for more than one unit size. So maybe some of you are interested in both a studio and a one-bedroom. There's no downside to applying for both if you're interested in both. So just make sure that you understand that that is an opportunity there, that you would be able to apply for any unit size that you're eligible for. And if you are eligible for the lottery, you'll get an email from SEB Housing that has your lottery application number. So I should say too that if you're submitting an online application, you're going to get an automatic kind of a bounce back auto reply email saying that your application was received. But then a week or two after that, you will also get a more personalized email from info@sdbhousing.com. Well, actually, it might be from a different account, but it'll be from sdbhousing.com, and it will let you know what your lottery application number is, and it will confirm that you were found to be eligible for the lottery. So if you were just to explain that lottery application number a little bit more, if you were the very first person to submit a complete application and be approved for the lottery at the Reeds, your lottery application number will be A.001. That's not a ranking of any sort. It's just an anonymous identifier, and you want to hold on to that number because it will be the number that is called or that is drawn in the lottery drawing, just so it's anonymous. That email is also going to confirm the bedroom sizes that you applied for. So if you applied for both a studio and a one bedroom, it should say that. And if at any point during this process you're found to be ineligible, maybe you're considered over income based off of what you listed on the application, you'll be informed by email as well, and you're encouraged to contact us if you have any questions about that. You know, sometimes we have people who are filling out the online application and maybe they have a typo and they mistakenly put an extra digit in their income. You're going to be found ineligible if you're over income based off of just a typo. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to the emails that are coming in. If you don't feel that you should have been found ineligible for the lottery, please contact us. We want to make sure that we have everything correct. So like I said, the lottery itself will be similar to this format, where it would be a Zoom and there'll be a screen share. You'll be able to instantaneously see the results of the drawing, and we'll be using a website called random.org to sort the numbers, and that will be the drawing rather than pulling numbers out of a box. And during the lottery, every lottery application number is going to be drawn. So sometimes you think of lotteries and you think, okay, there's 5 units, so they're only going to draw 5 numbers, but that's not how these lotteries work, because the purpose of the lottery is to establish an order for the waiting list. So in general, it's going to be better for your number to be pulled, further up the list, but we still need to sort the results onto the waiting list. So you're not going to know during the meeting exactly where you fall on the waiting list, because not everybody is going to have applied for the 60% units or the studios or the one bedrooms. So we still need to sort the results onto the waiting list. So you won't know a whole lot if you're tuning in the night of the lottery, but later on that night, I will be sending an email to you with the waiting list attached. So you will have those waiting lists that evening. And so once you have that waiting list, you'll have a much better understanding as to whether or not you're moving forward in the process. If you are one of the top households on the waiting list, you will be contacted by the leasing office to move on to that next step in the process, which is the lease screening at their office or via email. And like I said, excuse me, that could include, a credit check, rental history check, background check, that sort of thing. And once the leasing office has done their lease eligibility screening, if you're approved, you'll be able to select one of the available apartments. So if you're the first person on the 60% studio waiting list, you'll be able to select and reserve that unit. If you're further down the waiting list, that doesn't mean you won't have the opportunity to move forward in the process, because if anyone ahead of you on the waiting list drops off, you will move up the waiting list. So we'll keep you informed if that happens. And so if you're lease approved and you reserved one of the apartments, like I said, you'll then be referred back to SEB Housing to submit all of your income, asset, and tax documentation. So that's the point in the process where you want to make sure you have everything organized and you're able to submit that information to us within about 10 days. And of course, if you submit a partial application or you don't have all of your pay stubs yet, we will work with you and send you a incomplete form, just so you know, as long as you're in touch with us and are working towards a complete application, you should be fine. Once you're leased, if you're found to be program eligible by SEB Housing, we'll inform the leasing office that you can sign a lease. You would coordinate that with the landlord, and then you'd be good to go. If you sign a lease and are living in an affordable unit, we like to just remind everybody that you would need to recertify each year. So if you're living in, say you sign a lease for February 1st, 2026, around this time, or probably maybe even October or November of 2026, you will be asked to start a recertification with the leasing office. And that is just to update your finances with them and confirm that you're still considered a eligible affordable housing renter. So we hope that after the first year, you would want to remain there. And if you do, you'll complete that recertification with them. And if your income has increased and is now above that 60 or 80% of area median income amount, that's fine, because households are going to remain eligible for the affordable housing program as long as their total household income next year doesn't exceed 140% of the area median income. So to give you an idea of what that means, a household of two would have qualified for this lottery to rent an 80% AMI unit if they made at or below $79,800. That same family can make up to about $111,700 at the time of their recertification next year in order to remain eligible to rent that apartment at an affordable price. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to, if you have a raise, if you get a higher paying job, it doesn't mean that you now have to start paying market rent. There's a little bit of a grace period there. That about covers it. If you have any questions, let me know, or if you're watching this after the fact, just a reminder to reach out to SEB Housing at info@sebhousing.com, or you can give us a call at this number as well with any questions. Like I said, if you're watching this after the fact on our YouTube channel, we are happy to answer any questions you might have while you're thinking about filling out your application, or if you have already filled out an application for the REIT. And we look forward to getting your application if you haven't applied yet. Just a reminder of that online application link here. So this is listed everywhere, but this will be the easiest way for you to apply. And I should mention that the application deadline is listed as January 9th at 2 p.m. because after 2 p.m. on the 9th, this jot form application link, so the online application, will no longer be accessible. So you want to get that application in before 2 p.m. if you're planning to apply on the 9th. So thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a good night.